We've never had giant goals, really. Every single little step that we've taken forward has been, like, truly, we were like, oh my gosh. We played our first club show at Chain Reaction in Anaheim. That was a huge step. For me, I was like, cool, we did it. And then we signed with a record label, and that was like a huge step. And then we signed with a major, and that was, so like every step of the way, it's been like a genuine surprise, and it's been cool. But there hasn't been any lofty goals that we've set.
I think part of the long-term sustainability is not having a specific goal that we're trying to reach. I mean, that gets into like internal versus external rewards. Like for us, we're powered by the internal reward of the creative process. And it's always fun when that lines up with people being like, yay, I like this too. I think with this record, there's been a lot of that, and it's always so fun, but it's so unpredictable.
memories of your wild and gracious loves and the scene. Stand in golden Vesper Light under the western sky and sing.
We share and have shared the same kind of values about what we're doing as a band. And so there hasn't been tug of war of like someone's trying to have commercial success and somebody else is trying to have artistic integrity or whatever. We all very much just are about the creation of the music first, and then you do what you can to make a living after that. It's much more just bringing ideas forward, seeing what is exciting to everybody. Sometimes you have something where you're like, I think something special's here, maybe not everyone sees it yet, so you gotta give a little push. I think over time you just figure out how to trust each other with those things to where it's still always a very collaborative situation. That's been hugely helpful in keeping the four people together. When we broke the record, originally we were doing Horizons, and then we broke it into East and West. The fun part about that was kind of looking at ideas of beginnings and things like that on East, and then West really using the setting sun as this overarching metaphor that weaves its way through the whole record. Yeah, it's dealing with some darker stuff, endings and death and mortality, and the way that we either fight against those things or make peace with them. It was fun to use that metaphor of the sun setting, but let it be free to represent different things on different songs. So it's not this monolith in the record that always is doing the same thing. Sometimes it's representing a needed ending.
The way the world marks, the way
like an sort of production or engineering standpoint, like the vibe of actually playing live and together, I think is pretty important for us. It's been our aim for kind of a while now with all the recordings, but just trying to capture that energy. There's just stuff, you know, within performances that we try and either like not take out or I guess accentuate, you know, like sort of the more human qualities of things that seem to just sort of get axed in production processes nowadays.
Musically, I think we're all really happy with the energy of the record. There's a lot of kind of the spontaneity of the initial jam writing sessions that I think we were able to capture as we went forward. I think partially because we put it together in about a month and then recorded it immediately afterwards. So there wasn't this long period of rehashing and losing something. I think that really came through in a different way than some of our other records. And I think it's very much the best sounding record that we've ever had. Like, it just feels right.
How do we do this in a month and then immediately go to record it?
It got compressed into a month of really writing because we were pushed up against deadlines and none of us really do anything in December. It's just so much family stuff happening, whatever. So January happened and we were like on the ground running, and there was something good about that we tried to really lean into.
Yeah, there was definitely like a conscious thing where we're literally saying aloud, like, let's lean into the time crunch. Like, let's let it be a tool, not, you know, something that hampers what we're doing. We would go from raw ideas to trying to have like a rough idea or an arrangement for the song.
The songs probably each got like 3 touches almost as a band. You know, we'd move on, then like the next week we'd pick that one back up again,
right?
Move a little further, and then the third one would be like, all right, this is it.
Yeah,
this is kind of what we're gonna go into the studio and do.
But like you're saying, there's a lot of stuff that came out of just, you know, instinct and just trying to do things on the fly and not overthinking, which I think ended up being cool. When we're trying to lay down tracks, like, it's definitely not about trying to play perfect. It's about trying to like put as much feeling and like energy or whatever into the performance as possible.
Something we learned over time is just when you try to get everything perfect, it all ends up lining up in a really unnatural way that kills the mood. Like,
oh, for sure.
So by letting everything breathe, like being like, yeah, that was a good take, and not being like, oh, I kind of was like, you know, that one little part was off. Like, all the parts then have this kind of glue that works together, and there's a push-pull, and it gives it a different energy. We started out playing small punk clubs, and there's an ethos that while there were people on stage and there were people in the crowd, there was a community, and that nobody was really above that community. To us, that was where we came from, and that felt right, and it felt like something better than we saw out in the kind of pop world where there was this ascension of the creator of whatever or the performer above everything else. So I think, have always just kept that ethos with us.
We're sort of fortunate in that we're all pretty mellow people, and I don't think ever really started with, any sort of big ego or like any sort of goals as far as that kind of stuff. To the contrary, like sometimes, especially on tour, because you're always like in front of, people and audiences and stuff like that, like I start to feel almost like the opposite, where I'm like, like I'm just, I'm just a guy. Like I don't want to be treated special. I don't know, it just starts to feel a little weird almost. A lot of the bands that we're friends with are around,
maybe that's it too,
are pretty grounded as well. So yeah, we don't really see too much of the other side of it, I guess.
Oh, we have, and it's an ugly thing.
Sure, yeah, but it's really off-putting when you do see it.
I kind of feel like we don't at least live like what people would think was like the artist lifestyle. We have families and we work generally on records like 9 to 5. I feel like there's this myth of like you have to be unhinged in some way to make good art, and that's just never been how we've operated. We care a lot about the art, but it definitely isn't like the top priority in our lives.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely spend just as much of my life at soccer practices and than the studio. So we're super fortunate to be able to do that and have the support that we do.
There's definitely an element of luck to any creative success. And I think the combination of us committing to kind of the values that we run this by and luck are huge. Like, we set ourselves up to continue to be able to like make creative decisions and not worry about if anyone was gonna like it or not. Like, we did that, and that could have totally not worked.
Right.
And it has for plenty of people, and it did for us. So advice I often give people is like, if you're going to do something creatively, you've got to love what you're doing and not be attached to the results of what anyone else thinks of it, because you just can't predict that.
Yeah.